The sky over New York City was unusually dark that morning, the kind of gray that seemed to press down on everything below. People hurried along the streets, glancing up nervously as if expecting rain, though no clouds could explain the eerie dimness. Then it happened. A low hum filled the air, growing louder by the second until it vibrated through bones and rattled windows. And then they appeared. 3 massive ships descending silently from the heavens, their metallic surfaces shimmering like liquid silver. The ships hovered above major cities worldwide, not just New York but London, Tokyo, Sydney, and countless others. Panic rippled through the crowds below, but the fear quickly gave way to awe when a voice boomed out, calm and measured, speaking in perfect English. "We are the Veil," it said. "We come in peace." Among the stunned onlookers was Alex Carter, a young astrophysicist who had spent most of his life staring at the stars, wondering if humanity was alone in the universe. Now, standing on a crowded street corner, he felt both excitement and unease. The Veil's words sounded reassuring, but something about them didn't sit right. Their tone wasn't warm or welcoming. It was clinical, almost condescending. Nearby, Laura Bennett watched the scene unfold on her phone screen while pacing outside a military base in North Carolina. As a strategist with years of experience analyzing threats, she couldn't shake the feeling that this so-called peaceful arrival was anything but. She noticed how the Veil ambassadors never smiled, how their gestures were precise and deliberate, as though they were performing for an audience. It reminded her of predators sizing up prey. Back in New York, Alex found himself drawn to Central Park, where thousands had gathered to catch a glimpse of the alien ship looming overhead. Reporters shouted questions into microphones, and government officials tried to maintain order, but the atmosphere was electric. Alex's eyes scanned the vessel, searching for clues. He noticed subtle movements near its surface, faint ripples, almost imperceptible, that suggested activity beneath the metal exterior. His mind raced with possibilities. Were they scanning Earth, gathering data, or was it something more sinister? Later that evening, Alex returned to his small apartment cluttered with books and half-finished projects. He pulled up satellite images of the Veil ships on his laptop, zooming in on details others might miss. That's when he saw it, a faint trail of particles streaming from one of the ships, invisible to the naked eye, but undeniable under magnification. Whatever the Veil were doing, they weren't just observing. They were interacting with Earth in ways no one understood yet. Meanwhile, Laura sat in a dimly lit briefing room, listening to generals debate the next steps. Some argued for diplomacy, while others pushed for caution. When she finally spoke up, her voice cut through the noise. "We're assuming they're here to help because they told us so," she said firmly. "But what if they're not? What if we're giving them exactly what they want without even realizing it?" Her words hung in the air, met with silence. No one wanted to admit it, but deep down, everyone knew she was right. The Veil had arrived uninvited, made demands without asking, and positioned themselves as saviors despite offering little proof of goodwill. Humanity stood at a crossroads, unsure whether to trust or resist. But one thing was certain: the aliens had underestimated humans before, and sooner or later, someone would make them regret it. 2 years had passed since the Veil's arrival, and the world had changed in ways no one could have predicted. Their ships still hung silently above major cities, a constant reminder of their presence. At first, humanity had welcomed them with open arms, eager to learn from their advanced technology. The Veil shared devices that cured diseases, generated clean energy, and improved communication systems. But beneath their gifts lay strings attached, strings that grew tighter with each passing day. The Veil demanded resources in return for their help. Rare minerals buried deep within Earth's crust were extracted at an alarming rate, shipped off to their orbiting vessels without explanation. Governments assured the public it was a fair trade, but Alex Carter wasn't so sure. He spent countless nights poring over data, studying patterns in seismic activity near mining sites. What he found disturbed him. Earthquakes, once rare in certain regions, were now occurring more frequently. Volcanic activity showed signs of increasing too. Something wasn't right. Laura Bennett had seen enough to know the Veil weren't as benevolent as they claimed. She'd attended meeting after meeting where military leaders dismissed her concerns, brushing off her warnings as paranoia. "They're giving us miracles," one general had said during a briefing. "What do you want us to do? Bite the hand that feeds us?" Laura clenched her fists under the table but held her tongue. Arguing wouldn't change their minds. Instead, she turned to someone who might listen. Ryan Miller, a fellow strategist with a sharp mind and a knack for seeing through deception. Ryan agreed to meet Laura late one evening in a quiet cafe outside Fort Bragg. Over coffee, she laid out her suspicions. "It's not just about the resources," she said, leaning forward. "Every time they take something, there's a ripple effect. Look at the earthquakes. Look at the weather patterns shifting. They're destabilizing the planet." Ryan nodded slowly, his brow furrowed. "You're probably right," he admitted. "But proving it won't be easy. The higher-ups don't want to hear it." While Laura worked behind the scenes, Alex tried to sound the alarm in scientific circles. He presented his findings at conferences, wrote papers, and reached out to colleagues around the globe. Most ignored him, dismissing his theories as fear-mongering. One person, however, took notice. Mia Collins, a hacker known for exposing corporate corruption. She contacted Alex after reading one of his articles online. "If you're serious about this," she told him, "we need proof, not just numbers." Mia introduced Alex to Sam Turner, a former NASA engineer who had grown disillusioned with how governments mishandled space exploration. Together, the three began piecing together fragments of information stolen from classified databases. They discovered blueprints of Veil technology, logs of resource shipments, and encrypted messages hinting at long-term plans. None of it painted a reassuring picture. As weeks turned into months, the trio realized they couldn't tackle this alone. They needed allies, people willing to risk everything to uncover the truth. That's when they met Laura and Ryan, brought together by chance at a small gathering of skeptics. It didn't take long for them to realize they shared the same goal: to expose the Veil for what they truly were. The group decided to call themselves *Eclipse*, a name symbolizing their mission to shine light on hidden truths. Working in secret, they pooled their skills and resources, determined to find a way to fight back. Alex analyzed data, Mia hacked into secure networks, Sam reverse-engineered alien tech, and Laura and Ryan strategized how to mobilize others. Each member brought something unique to the table, united by a common purpose. But time was running out. The Veil's operations expanded, digging deeper into Earth's core. Reports of environmental disasters multiplied, yet world leaders continued to deny any connection. The people of Eclipse knew they couldn't wait for permission to act. If humanity was going to survive, they would have to take matters into their own hands. And soon. The members of Eclipse worked tirelessly, hidden away in an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of Chicago. The space was cramped and drafty, filled with salvaged equipment, scattered papers, and half-built prototypes. It wasn't much, but it was safe, for now. Each day, they grew closer to uncovering the truth about the Veil's true intentions, and each night, they planned their next move. Alex spent hours hunched over his laptop, analyzing data from mining sites around the world. He cross-referenced seismic activity with resource extraction rates, creating maps that painted a grim picture. Earth's core was being destabilized, slowly but surely. If nothing changed, the consequences could be catastrophic. Alex shared his findings with the group during one of their late-night meetings. "This isn't just about earthquakes or volcanoes," he said, pointing to a graph on the screen. "If this keeps up, we're looking at a planet-wide collapse." Laura listened intently, her arms crossed as she processed the information. She had seen enough evidence to know Alex was right, but convincing others outside their small circle would be nearly impossible. Governments and corporations were too invested in the Veil's promises to listen. Still, Laura refused to give up. "We need something undeniable," she said firmly. "Something so clear even the skeptics can't ignore it." That's where Mia came in. Her fingers flew across her keyboard as she hacked into secure networks, searching for any shred of proof that could back up Alex's claims. One evening, after days of dead ends, she struck gold. Buried deep within encrypted files was a memo from a high-ranking official admitting awareness of the environmental damage caused by the Veil's operations. More importantly, it outlined plans to suppress public knowledge of the issue. "Got it," Mia whispered triumphantly, sharing the document with the group. For the first time in weeks, there was a glimmer of hope. Sam immediately got to work using the stolen blueprints of Veil technology. His goal was simple but ambitious: create a weapon capable of disabling their shields. It wasn't easy. Alien tech was far beyond anything humans had ever encountered. But Sam was determined. With Mia's help deciphering complex algorithms and Alex's insights into energy patterns, he began assembling a prototype. Late nights turned into early mornings as sparks flew and circuits hummed, inching them closer to a breakthrough. Meanwhile, Laura focused on recruiting new allies. Word of Eclipse spread quietly through trusted channels, reaching people who shared their concerns. Among them was Emily Dawson, a nurse-turned-fighter pilot who had grown disillusioned with the military's refusal to act against the Veil. When Laura approached her, Emily didn't hesitate to join. "I've seen what they're doing," she said, her voice steady. "If no one else is going to stop them, I will." As the team expanded, so did their resolve. They trained together, preparing for a fight none of them truly believed they could win, but one they knew they couldn't avoid. Ryan became their moral compass, reminding everyone why they were doing this. "It's not just about us," he told them during a rare moment of calm. "It's about everyone out there who doesn't know the truth yet. We owe it to them to try." But the Veil weren't idle either. Reports surfaced of increased patrols near mining sites, along with unexplained disappearances of scientists and activists who spoke out against the aliens. The message was clear: resistance would not be tolerated. Despite the growing danger, Eclipse pressed on, driven by a shared belief that humanity deserved better than to be treated as pawns in someone else's game. One cold winter night, as snow fell softly outside the warehouse, Alex looked around at his teammates. Each of them carried scars, physical, emotional, or both, but none had given up. For the first time since the Veil's arrival, Alex felt a spark of optimism. Maybe they couldn't undo the damage already done, but they could fight back. And maybe, just maybe, they could prove that humanity wasn't as weak as the Veil thought. The tension in the warehouse was thick as Eclipse prepared for their first real strike against the Veil. It had been weeks of planning, testing, and arguing over every detail. The target was a remote mining facility in the Arctic, one of the largest and most active sites, where the Veil extracted resources from Earth's crust. If they could destroy it, they might buy humanity some time, and send a message that resistance was possible. Sam Turner stood at the center of the room, surrounded by wires, tools, and half-finished gadgets. His prototype weapon, a sleek device he called the Asterisk Pulse Disruptor Asterisk, was finally complete. "This should do it," he said, holding up the small but powerful gadget. "It'll overload their shields long enough for us to get inside." Laura nodded, her expression grim but determined. She knew this mission was risky, but there was no turning back now. Alex Carter studied maps of the facility, pinpointing entry points and escape routes. He pointed to a narrow canyon leading to the site. "We go in through here," he said. "It's out of sight from their patrols, and the terrain will give us cover." Mia Collins chimed in, tapping on her laptop screen. "I hacked into their surveillance feeds," she explained. "There are fewer guards during the night shift, so we'll have a better chance then." Emily Dawson listened carefully, her hands gripping the edge of the table. As a former fighter pilot, she was used to high-stakes missions, but this felt different. This wasn't just about skill or strategy. It was about survival. If they failed, the Veil would come after them with everything they had. Still, Emily pushed those thoughts aside. "What about transportation?" she asked. "How do we get there without being detected?" Laura smiled faintly. "That's already taken care of," she replied. A friend of Ryan's had smuggled them a modified cargo plane, stripped down for speed and stealth. It wasn't much, but it would get them close enough to the facility. From there, they'd move on foot, relying on darkness and teamwork to stay hidden. The night of the mission arrived faster than anyone expected. Dressed in black tactical gear, the team boarded the plane under the cover of darkness. The flight was silent except for the hum of the engines, each member lost in their own thoughts. Alex stared out the window at the endless expanse of snow below, wondering if this would be his last view of Earth. Ryan sat beside him, gripping his shoulder reassuringly. "We've got this," he whispered. "Just stick to the plan." When they landed, the cold hit them like a wall. Pulling hoods over their faces, they moved quickly toward the canyon Alex had identified. The wind howled around them, biting at exposed skin, but they pressed on. Reaching the edge of the facility, Sam activated the pulse disruptor. A low whine filled the air as the device powered up, followed by a sharp crackle. For a brief moment, the Veil's energy shields flickered and died. "Go!" Laura shouted, and the team sprang into action. They slipped through the gap in the defenses, heading straight for the main control hub. Inside, glowing panels lined the walls, pulsing with alien symbols none of them understood. Maya took charge, connecting her laptop to the system. Her fingers flew across the keyboard as lines of code scrolled past. "I'm setting off a chain reaction," she muttered. "It'll take out the entire facility." But things didn't go perfectly. Alarms blared suddenly, echoing through the corridors. Guards appeared, armed and ready to fight. Ryan stepped forward, drawing their fire while the others worked. "Keep going," he yelled, firing back with precision. His bravery gave the team precious seconds, but it came at a cost. A bolt of energy struck him, sending him crashing to the ground. "No!" Laura screamed, but there was no time to stop. Tears streaming down her face, she helped Maya finish the job. The facility shuddered violently as explosions erupted deep within its core. "Let's move," Laura ordered, pulling Emily and Sam toward the exit. Alex hesitated, looking back at Ryan's motionless body, but Laura grabbed his arm. "He knew what he was doing," she said firmly. "We honor him by finishing this." They barely made it out alive, fleeing into the icy wilderness as the facility collapsed behind them. Exhausted and heartbroken, they'd reached the plane just as dawn broke. As they lifted off, Alex looked down at the burning wreckage below. They had won, for now, but the price had been steep. Ryan's sacrifice weighed heavily on all of them, a reminder of what was at stake. The Veil might have underestimated humanity once, but they wouldn't make that mistake again. The aftermath of the Arctic mission hit Eclipse hard. They had destroyed the Veil mining facility, but Ryan's death left a gaping hole in the team. Laura spent hours staring at his empty chair in the warehouse, replaying his final moments in her mind. She could still hear his voice shouting for them to keep going, even as he fell. Alex avoided looking at the chair altogether, burying himself in work instead. He pored over data and maps, searching for their next target, but his hands trembled as he typed. Emily stayed quiet, her usual determination replaced by guilt. She kept thinking about how she'd hesitated when they needed her most. Mia was the first to break the silence. "We can't stop," she said one evening, her voice sharp but not unkind. "Ryan gave his life so we could finish this. If we quit now, it'll mean nothing." Her words hung heavy in the air, but no one argued. She was right. As much as it hurt, they had to keep moving forward. The Veil wouldn't wait for them to grieve. And they didn't. Within days, the aliens retaliated with brutal efficiency. Massive warships descended over major cities, unleashing waves of destruction. Buildings crumbled, streets burned, and thousands of lives were lost in an instant. The Veil broadcasted a message worldwide. their once calm tone now cold and menacing. "This is your punishment for defiance," they declared. "Submit or perish." The world reeled from the attack. Governments scrambled to respond, but their outdated weapons proved useless against the Veil's advanced technology. Missiles exploded harmlessly against energy shields, and fighter jets were shot down before they could get close. Panic spread like wildfire as people realized humanity was outmatched. Yet amidst the chaos, whispers of hope began to emerge. Stories of Eclipse's daring raid reached the public, inspiring ordinary citizens to rise up. Protesters took to the streets, demanding action. Some even tried sabotaging smaller Veil operations on their own, though most failed. Desperate for answers, world leaders finally turned to Eclipse. A delegation arrived at the warehouse late one night, led by General Margaret Hayes, a no-nonsense officer known for her pragmatism. She didn't waste time with pleasantries. "You've done what we couldn't," she said, addressing the group. "Now we need your help." Laura crossed her arms, her expression guarded. "Why should we trust you?" she asked. "You ignored us when we warned you about the Veil. Why come to us now?" General Hayes sighed, running a hand through her graying hair. "Because we're out of options," she admitted. "Our forces are overwhelmed. If we don't act soon, Earth won't recover from this." Sam stepped forward, holding up the pulse disruptor. "This is our edge," he explained. "But it's not enough on its own. We need resources, manpower, and protection if we're going to take the fight to them." After hours of tense negotiation, Eclipse agreed to share their knowledge, but only under strict conditions. They would remain independent, working alongside military forces, but answering to no one. General Hayes reluctantly agreed, knowing they held the key to humanity's survival. With her support, production of the pulse disruptor began in secret factories around the globe. Volunteers poured in, eager to join the resistance. Among them were farmers, teachers, engineers, and doctors, ordinary people willing to risk everything for a chance to fight back. As preparations continued, Alex focused on developing new strategies to counter the Veil. He studied footage of their attacks, identifying patterns in their movements and weaknesses in their defenses. "They're arrogant," he told the group during a meeting. "They think we're too weak to challenge them. That's our advantage." Laura nodded, adding, "We hit them fast and hard, then vanish before they can retaliate. Guerrilla tactics, they won't expect that." Emily threw herself into training recruits, teaching them how to operate the disruptors and evade enemy fire. Her natural leadership inspired those around her, giving them courage in the face of despair. Even Maya found ways to contribute, using her hacking skills to monitor Veil communications and predict their next moves. Slowly but surely, Eclipse grew stronger, united by a shared purpose. But the cost of failure loomed large in everyone's minds. The Veil weren't just attacking cities, they were dismantling Earth piece by piece. Time was running out. As Laura looked around at her teammates, she saw exhaustion etched on their faces, but also resolve. They had started this fight because no one else would. Now, despite the odds, they were humanity's best, and only. The final plan was born out of desperation and hope. Eclipse knew they couldn't keep fighting small battles forever. To turn the tide, they needed to strike at the heart of the Veil's power, their central command ship orbiting Earth. It was a suicide mission by any measure, but none of them hesitated. If they succeeded, it would cripple the Veil's ability to coordinate their attacks. If they failed, humanity might not survive another day. Laura stood in front of a large map projected on the warehouse wall, her voice steady as she outlined the strategy. "We'll use modified stealth fighters," she explained. "Sam designed them to bypass the Veil's sensors. A small team will infiltrate the command ship, disable its defenses, and plant explosives deep inside." Alex nodded, his eyes scanning the details. "Once the shields are down, Earth's forces can launch a full-scale assault," he added. "It's risky, but it's our best shot." The team quickly divided tasks. Sam worked around the clock, fine-tuning the fighters and ensuring they could withstand the harsh conditions of space. Mia hacked into satellite networks, gathering intel on the command ship's layout and identifying weak points. Emily trained the pilots who would escort the infiltration team, drilling them on evasive maneuvers and emergency protocols. Meanwhile, Laura prepared the volunteers chosen for the mission, people willing to sacrifice everything for a chance to save their planet. Alex spent hours poring over blueprints of the command ship, mapping out routes and escape plans. He also wrote letters to his family, just in case. Sitting at a cluttered desk, pen in hand, he struggled to find the right words. "If you're reading this," he began, "it means I didn't make it back. But please know I did this because I believe in a future where we're free, where no one gets to decide our fate but us." His hand shook slightly as he folded the letter and tucked it into an envelope. He hoped his parents would understand. The night before the mission, the team gathered in the warehouse for one last briefing. The air was heavy with tension, but there were moments of quiet camaraderie too. Emily handed out patches she'd sewn herself, simple designs of Earth surrounded by stars. "For luck," she said, pinning one onto Alex's jacket. Even Mia cracked a rare smile, though her eyes betrayed her fear. "Don't mess this up," she teased, nudging Sam lightly. As dawn broke, the team boarded the fighters, each person carrying not just weapons and tools, but the weight of humanity's survival on their shoulders. Laura led the infiltration team, her expression calm but resolute. She glanced at Alex, seated beside her, and gave him a reassuring nod. "We've trained for this," she said. "We know what we're doing. Just focus on the mission." He forced a smile, though his stomach churned with nerves. The journey to space felt surreal. Outside the cockpit windows, Earth hung below them, vast and fragile, its oceans shimmering under the sunlight. For a moment, Alex forgot about the danger ahead and marveled at how beautiful their home was. Then reality snapped back as the command ship loomed into view, a massive metallic behemoth bristling with weapons. "This is it," Laura whispered over the comms. "Stay sharp." The fighters approached cautiously, weaving through debris fields left by earlier skirmishes. As they neared the ship, Sam's modifications held true. The Veil's sensors failed to detect them. One by one, the fighters docked, and the infiltration team disembarked, pulse rifles raised and hearts pounding. Inside the ship, the air was cold and sterile, illuminated by faint blue lights that pulsed rhythmically along the walls. Alien symbols glowed on control panels, unreadable but ominous. Mia guided them through corridors using a handheld device, directing them toward the core. Every step felt like walking into a trap, but they pressed on, knowing there was no turning back. Suddenly, alarms blared, shattering the silence. The Veil had discovered them. "Move faster," Laura shouted, firing at approaching drones. The team sprinted down the corridor, dodging blasts of energy. They reached the core room, where Alex planted the explosives while Laura and Emily covered him. Their movements were frantic but precise, years of preparation boiling down to these critical moments. "Done," Alex said, his voice trembling. "Let's go." But as they turned to leave, a squad of Veil soldiers blocked their path. Weapons charged, the aliens advanced, their glowing eyes fixed on the humans. Laura raised her rifle, her jaw set. "We're not done yet," she growled. The standoff in the core room was tense, every second stretching like an eternity. Laura tightened her grip on her rifle, her mind racing. There were too many Veil soldiers blocking their escape, and their energy weapons glowed ominously as they advanced. "We don't have time for this," Alex muttered under his breath, glancing at the timer on the explosives. They had less than 3 minutes before the charges detonated, and the team needed to be far away, or risk being caught in the blast. Emily stepped forward, her pulse rifle raised. "I'll hold them off," she said firmly, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. "You two get out of here." Laura shook her head. "No way, we're not leaving you behind." But Emily's expression hardened. If we all stay, none of us make it. Go." Before anyone could argue, she fired a burst of shots at the advancing Veil, forcing them to take cover. The distraction gave Laura and Alex a chance to slip past, but neither of them felt relief, only guilt. As they sprinted down the corridor, explosions echoed behind them. Laura glanced back once, her heart heavy, but she forced herself to focus. Emily had bought them precious time, and they couldn't waste it. The sound of gunfire faded into silence, replaced by the hum of the ship's systems. Alex led the way, following the map Mia had programmed into his wrist device. "This way," he shouted, turning a corner sharply. Every step took them closer to the docking bay, but the countdown on the explosives reminded them how little time they had left. When they finally reached the fighters, Sam was waiting, his face pale with worry. "Where's Emily?" he asked, his voice cracking slightly. Laura didn't answer. She just shoved him toward the cockpit. "Go. Now." Sam hesitated for a moment, then obeyed, climbing into the pilot's seat. As the engines roared to life, Alex strapped himself in, clutching the edge of his seat tightly. "Hold on," Sam said grimly, punching the thrusters. The fighter shot out of the docking bay, narrowly avoiding blasts from pursuing Veil ships. Behind them, the command ship erupted in a blinding explosion, sending shockwaves rippling through space. Debris scattered in all directions, some chunks slamming into nearby fighters. Laura braced herself as their ship rocked violently, but Sam managed to stabilize it. For a moment, there was only silence as they stared at the wreckage, the glowing remains fading into the void. Alex exhaled slowly, his hands trembling. "It's done," he whispered, but the victory felt hollow without Emily. Back on Earth, news of the attack spread quickly. The destruction of the command ship disrupted the Veil's coordination, leaving their forces scattered and vulnerable. Humanity seized the opportunity, launching counterattacks across the globe. Cities that had been under siege rallied together, ordinary citizens joining soldiers in battle. Eclipse's plan had worked. Their bold strike had inspired hope and unity where there had once been despair. Mia monitored the chaos from the warehouse, coordinating efforts remotely. Her fingers flew across her keyboard as she relayed critical information to resistance fighters. "They're pulling back in Paris," she shouted to anyone within earshot. "Focus fire on the eastern flank." Despite her exhaustion, she felt a flicker of pride. The world was fighting back, proving that humanity wasn't as weak as the Veil believed. Laura watched footage of the battles from a small screen in the warehouse, tears streaming down her face. She thought of Emily, Ryan, and all the others who had given their lives for this moment. Their sacrifices hadn't been in vain. People everywhere were rising up, refusing to bow to the invaders. Even those who had doubted Eclipse now stood shoulder to shoulder with them, united by a shared purpose. Alex joined her, handing her a cup of coffee. Neither of them spoke. They didn't need to. The weight of what they'd accomplished hung between them, mingled with the grief of those they'd lost. "We did it," Alex said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. "But it's not over yet." He was right. The fight was far from finished, and the cost of freedom was still being paid in blood and sacrifice. Yet amidst the devastation, something remarkable had emerged. A sense of resilience, a refusal to give up even when the odds seemed impossible. The Veil had underestimated humanity once, thinking they were nothing more than fragile creatures clinging to a dying planet. But now, the aliens were learning just how wrong they had been. The battle raged across the globe, a chaotic mix of desperation and defiance. The destruction of the Veil's command ship had thrown their forces into disarray, but they were far from defeated. Their ships still hovered over cities, raining down fire with relentless precision. Humanity fought back with everything it had: improvised weapons, stolen technology, and sheer determination. It was a war unlike any other, one where ordinary people became heroes in the blink of an eye. In New York, a group of teenagers armed with pulse disruptors took down a squad of Veil drones guarding a supply depot. In Tokyo, factory workers repurposed old machinery to create makeshift artillery, turning abandoned warehouses into fortresses. Even in remote villages, farmers used whatever tools they could find to sabotage Vale mining operations. Stories of bravery spread like wildfire, fueling the resistance and reminding everyone that no act was too small to make a difference. Eclipse worked tirelessly to keep the momentum going. Mia hacked into Vale communications, feeding real-time intel to fighters on the ground. Her voice crackled over radios as she guided squads through enemy lines. "They're moving reinforcements to Sector 7, she shouted. "Cut them off before they regroup." Sam coordinated repairs for damaged fighters and disruptors, his hands blackened with grease but steady as ever. Alex analyzed battlefield patterns, helping strategists predict the Vale's next moves. "They're focusing on major cities," he told Laura during a brief pause. "We need to draw them out, stretch their forces thin." Laura nodded, her mind racing. She knew the key to winning this war wasn't just brute force, it was unity. For years, humanity had been divided by borders, politics, and greed. Now, those divisions were crumbling under the weight of survival. Soldiers who once served rival nations fought side by side. Scientists shared breakthroughs without worrying about patents or recognition. Even civilians banded together, sharing food, shelter, and hope when there was little else to give. But the cost of this newfound unity was staggering. Cities lay in ruins, their streets littered with debris and ash. Hospitals overflowed with wounded fighters and civilians alike. Emily Dawson's sacrifice inspired countless others to join the fight, but each new loss weighed heavily on those left behind. Laura often found herself staring at a map of Earth, marked with red dots indicating battles won and lost. Each dot represented lives saved, or lives taken. One evening, after another long day of coordinating attacks, Laura sat alone in the warehouse, staring at a photo of Ryan. His smile reminded her of better times, before the Vale arrived and changed everything. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she quickly wiped them away. Crying wouldn't bring him back, nor would it honor his memory. Instead, she stood, gripping the edges of the table until her knuckles turned white. "We finish this," she whispered. "For you. For all of them." Alex joined her a moment later, holding 2 cups of coffee. He set one down in front of her and leaned against the table. "How are you holding up?" he asked softly. Laura shrugged, forcing a weak smile. "As well as can be expected," she replied. "What about you?" Alex hesitated before answering. "I keep thinking about what we've lost," he admitted. "But then I think about what we're fighting for. A future where people don't have to live in fear, where we decide our own fate." Their conversation was interrupted by the sound of footsteps. Mia burst into the room, her face flushed with excitement. "You need to see this," she exclaimed, pulling up footage on a nearby screen. It showed a massive crowd gathered in London's Trafalgar Square, chanting slogans and waving homemade banners. At the center stood a young woman, her voice ringing out clear and strong. "We are not afraid," she shouted. "They underestimated us, but we will never give up." The sight filled Laura and Alex with renewed determination. The Vale might have superior weapons and technology, but they lacked something humanity had in abundance: heart. People weren't fighting for power or profit. They were fighting for their homes, their families, and their freedom. That spirit couldn't be crushed, no matter how hard the Vale tried. As the days turned into weeks, Eclipse pushed harder than ever. They devised new tactics, trained more recruits, and built stronger alliances. Slowly but surely, the tide began to turn. The Vale's forces grew weaker, their attacks less coordinated. Humanity's resistance, once scattered and disorganized, had become a united force to be reckoned with. And yet, the final battle loomed ahead. Everyone knew it was coming. The moment when humanity would either reclaim its planet or lose it forever. But if there was one thing the Vale had failed to understand, it was this.